And that way Dave doesn't get mad. No.
Staff. Yep.
Y'all ready?
All right. Let's call this meeting to order. Miss Bear, if you would do our pledge.
If everybody will stand and join me with their hand over their heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And staff, if you're ready to proceed.
We are. Thank you.
Well, I guess, he's kind of multi-purpose guy there.
Yeah, he's all over the place, isn't he?
Literally.
All right. Thank you, council. Appreciate your time tonight. Again, I'm going to do this every single time. I think we have one more workshop, at least on the books. We might have a few more. But again, I just need to thank you all for the time and effort and everything that you have allowed staff to put into this effort and allowed our consultants to put into this, because it's a big deal. Couldn't have done it without our consultants, couldn't have done it without the team standing behind me. Couldn't have done it without the support of the leadership of the city. So thank you. Moving on from that, tonight, staff was asked to put the remaining articles on tonight's agenda, just in case we can possibly get through all of them and then maybe skip the last one on December 9th, next Monday. So tonight we do have, everything is in here, Article 8, Article 11, Article 3, 5, 9, and 10 is the last item, okay? So we can do it in any order. I don't think Article 3, 5, 9, and 10 is gonna take a whole lot of time because there's not a whole lot of changes.
My vote's 8.
You go straight to 8? 8 is gonna take the longest, obviously. So, okay. All right, well, we'll just kick it off at 8 then. Here we are, Article 8, sign regulations. It's a hot topic right now, has been pretty much all year long. There was a lot of sign talk at the visioning session or strategy session earlier in the year. So it's obviously on everyone's mind, especially with the undergrounding. That's kind of been the crux of the sign discussion. So what is in Article 8? We're going to cover the major changes, language, format, organization, consolidation, and then the discussion topics that were spoken at the LPA and other public meetings. So next slide. So what's in Article 8? That's a typo there. It's all of what is current Article 16, which is our current sign regulations, okay? Next. You can skip this one. We've been through this one a few times, been through this one. So public workshops and LPA meetings. We've had 4 meetings specifically with Article 8 and the LPA. The first one was October with discussion. With an introduction of it. There had been some minor introductions to signage throughout the year, but this was the first time that the entire draft had been presented to the LPA. It was just a quick introduction of it, and kind of walking through the format, a few of the changes, just to kind of orient everyone to that. The next one was October 17th. We had a very robust conversation and discussion. They requested a few changes at that one. And then again, at the November 17th, again, another robust, strong conversations, strong feelings about a lot of things, and some recommendations were made there. And then the final recommendation to City Council for positive recommendation of adoption was on November 21st. Next. So let's get into the discussions, and we're going to kick it off with a big one. So 2015, there was a major Supreme Court case, and I say major Supreme Court case because we all know how bipartisan our country is, and so it's very rare that both sides of the aisle agree on anything. However, this is one Supreme Court case that was unanimous. Every single member on the Supreme Court voted in favor of Mr. Reed, Pastor Reed, and there were 2 concurring opinions on it, okay? which is also, it's not really rare, but for two concurring opinions to come out is pretty substantive when it comes to these sorts of things. So what was the court case? It was Reed v. Gilbert, Pastor Reed versus the town of Gilbert, Arizona. So what was the issue? The town of Gilbert had sign regulations that limited him from the size of his signs that he could place in the medians, in the right-of-ways on private property to direct his church members to the church of where it was that week, because they did not have a brick and mortar church. They changed locations throughout the town, okay? The city regulation said, well, since you're a church and you're not stationary, you're allowed X by Y signage, and it can go up at this time, but it must come down at this time, okay? There were other uses that were temporary, didn't have brick and mortar, but they were allowed almost twice as much and sometimes 3 times as much square footage of signage, okay? And it was all based on what the sign itself said, okay? So Pastor Reed's sign, Church of Gilbert, right, could only get, let's just use round easy numbers, 10 square feet, and it could go up for 3 hours before the event and had to come down an hour after the event, okay? Well, there was a traveling library, as an example, that was coming into town. Another non-commercial-ish type of use, right? Well, they got 20 square feet, and they could go up a few days in advance, and they could come down, a couple days later, right? The regulations were based on what the sign says, not in a very fair manner, okay? So the Supreme Court case basically told the town of Gilbert that you can't read the sign for what it says, okay? You can read the sign to determine one of two things. Is it commercial speech or is it non-commercial speech? That's it. That's all you can look at the sign for, to determine what it is. From there, then you can regulate it however you want. But you can't regulate non-commercial speech that is different from, another use that is non-commercial differently. You have to regulate all non-commercial speech the same and all commercial speech the same, okay? Justice Alito's concurring opinion went even deeper and stated that, okay, we have freestanding ground signs and attached building signs, right? So now you can have attached commercial or attached non-commercial or freestanding commercial or freestanding non-commercial. Then it goes even further. You can have temporary or you can have permanent signage, right? So now we've got all these types and classifications of signage. But again, you can't regulate them differently based on what it says, only to determine whether it's commercial or non-commercial speech, okay? So where does that leave us? You have to break down how your how your sign regulations regulate based on, is it permanent? Is it temporary? Is it attached? Is it detached? And is it commercial or non-commercial speech? So in your packet, I think page 4 or 5 of Article 8 is just the first chart of permanent signage. And you'll see in there that it's broken out commercial, non-commercial. What Reed v. Gilbert also allows, and what the APA the American Planning Association has given guidance on, is you can regulate commercial and non-commercial speech by zoning district, as long as you maintain that separation of all non-commercial speech in this zoning district is regulated the same, whether it's permanent or temporary, attached or detached, okay? And so that's a result, that's a distillation, that chart that you see there in permanent, and then if you scroll even further down to temporary, that's the distillation of basically what Reed v. Gilbert and the concurring opinions tell us as a municipality what we can do. Anything outside of that, we get into the content-based regulations, which Reed v. Gilbert says is unconstitutional. Okay? So I'm going to stop there real quick. Does anyone have any questions on that?
Questions, anybody?
Okay. Next slide. So I want to make a real quick point here. You'll see something highlighted on my slide, and I need to make this because of the way it's distilled and broken out now, there are new classifications, new sign types that we don't account for in our code. And so how do we have a discussion on something that we don't currently have without putting something on paper, right? Just to at least start the discussion. So you'll see that it's broken out by zoning districts, right? And it was broken out, there's residential, mixed use, commercial, and then I believe other. Commercial, industrial, institutional, and then other, recreational, conservation. Some of the examples in there, specifically with the mixed use districts, show a different sign height that is purely for example only, okay? Or staff put those in for purely for example only, showing how we can regulate signage in a different manner based on ground sign, attached sign, in a zoning, by zoning district, okay? So staff put a number of, I believe, sign height for mixed use districts at 8 feet as the example, right? It's not an uncommon sign height in mixed use districts. It's not an uncommon sign height in general. So we just started there at 8, just to at least start the conversation and show that you can regulate it differently. During the discussion at the LPA, that discussion was had, and the LPA recommended that 8 feet for mixed-use districts remain as their recommendation moving forward to you all. So that's why that's in there now still, okay? Permanent and temporary signs, sign classification types. So those charts you'll see is a one-stop shop. Someone comes in, hey, this is my zoning district, this is my address, we can determine the zoning district. Okay, what type of sign do you want? I want an attached sign. Obviously, if you want a commercial zone, probably gonna be doing a business, so it's probably gonna be a commercial, permanent, attached or detached freestanding sign. So from there, that's how we can figure out, or they can figure out what their sign allowances are, okay? Any questions? I feel like I'm moving through this pretty fast, so.
Sure, and maybe this isn't time for it yet, but the permanent residential commercial, did you?
Yeah, so that's,
Did we just-
yeah.
that
this
coming up,
yeah,
or-
no, there is a slide for it that's coming up, but we
Okay,
can
then I'll
talk about
wait.
it now.
I'll wait.
Okay, all right, next slide. Next slide. I forgot the order of the slides. So, currently in our code, there's nothing that states that you can't put a commercial sign on in a residential district. There are regulations that you can't put a sign up for your home occupation, right? Because home occupations, I stated last night that home occupations can't put signs up because there can't be any external indication that it's not a residence, right? So, but currently per our code, commercial signs are allowed in residential districts, okay? We don't allow off-site signage, so if there's no activity for that commercial speech happening at that location, that would be considered off-premise signage, which is prohibited. So it wouldn't be allowed to begin with, right?
Steve, yeah, sorry, go ahead. Can you back up?
Backing up.
Differentiate. You can't have a sign for your home occupation, but you can have a sign for commercial activity, but not the commercial activity that's happening in your home? So what's the commercial activity that you would have a sign for?
That's the circular argument that our current code has, right?
The confusion.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's what the current code, the draft has right there. Permanent commercial speech signage is not allowed per the draft right now. That's, if you're looking at the chart on page 4 or 5, whatever it
So
is.
what we were talking about last night, if somebody in like Old Destin neighborhood housing area has a business that is a mobile business, but that mobile vehicle sits in their driveway,
So
80% of the
that's
time.
not a permanent signage.
so it doesn't
So
matter.
it would be regulated differently because we have regulations for vehicle signs. Okay, if it's on a vehicle, we'd have to look to see if it meets the definition for a vehicle sign. So the permanent ground signs or the freestanding sign, excuse me, or the attached signs would not apply in that case because it's not attached to a building and it's not attached to the ground.
So I thought I heard you just say in the draft, it's not allowed.
Correct.
So when I'm looking at F in yellow highlighting, this is saying,
Can you pull that up, Daniel?
this is under special signs, section 834, residential commercial signs. In a residential district, a freestanding sign may be permitted if the following are met.
Yeah.
So you-
Yes.
So it is allowed.
It's allowed in those certain circumstances, and if you look at that,
Permanent sign.
what we're trying to get at there, because if we just ban commercial signage altogether in residential districts, then you can't get a subdivision sign. You can't get an entrance sign to your
But
subdivision.
why did you just say it's not allowed? I guess
Big-
I'm confused.
Sorry, my apologies. I just forgot about that little caveat because it was just generated at
Okay,
the
no worries.
last LPA meeting. So my apologies.
No,
on
it's
the
okay. I just want to
confusion.
make
So-
sure I'm following you correctly.
Yeah, no, you absolutely are correct there, but it's limited to certain circumstances and in a time, place, manner regulation.
So this is where we would make that change, or these are what's been suggested by the LPA?
Everything you see in there,
Is where we're at in the folks that bring stuff to us. They've looked at it, and this is the best way we can make sure we hit all the proper buttons, that we do everything that's not going to pick on anyone in particular, or not going to segregate a business that might have a vehicle in their driveway in the housing area.
yeah, so I've got a slide on vehicle signage coming up that we can discuss, but as far as permanent signage or temporary signage, a vehicle sign would not apply.
Do you know if we have any commercial signs in residential districts now?
Yes. We
I
have
don't
several
know
in
of
our
any
neighborhood.
specific examples myself, but I'm sure it happens. I'm sure there are.
And they're permanent standing signs, not vehicle signs?
I have one that's on 2x4s that's hammered into the ground, and
What is
it's
it?
out, actually in the right-of-way.
Is it advertising something on-site or off-site?
It's advertising a business that the person that lives in the house owns.
In another area?
In another area? Is the
No,
business
there
in
is
the-
no business office. He's working out of his home.
Ah,
It's a handyman business, and he's advertising it in his front yard in the right-of-way.
I think that's probably not allowed under the present code.
It's
is it?
it's not allowed under the current regulations because
And-
home
and,
occupations aren't allowed to have that external, I can't think of the term,
Well,
indication, external indication that there's a business going on.
Yeah, so that's a code enforcement issue at the moment.
Yes, sir.
it's been there for
You might need to
Well
file a
over a
complaint
year.
with code if you want them to come do that.
well over a year. Well, it hasn't been, it's been called in. There's several of them I've called in, but it's just not being addressed. So that's why I was, and they didn't know if it was legal or not. Nobody knocks on the door and says, oh, is this your business or is this somebody else's business you're advertising? But that was my next question. Can you advertise somebody else's business in your front yard?
No, we do not allow off-premise signage.
Okay.
So if for commercial speech, if the activity is not happening on the location where the sign is, it's considered an off-premise sign.
Okay, and personally, I would like homeowners associations to be able to have their signage there announcing that this is their home, this is such and such residential area or whatever it is. But after that, I don't think anybody needs a sign in the residential area.
And we could,
And I don't know
there's.
how you do that.
I've seen other locations but it might be difficult at the state level and I can get with Kim on it. that we can classify signage marking the entrance at a subdivision as non-commercial speech.
Yeah.
Something to that effect. I've seen it before. I haven't seen it adopted, but I've seen it proposed. I haven't seen it adopted.
Well, I think that's pretty smart, you know.
Well, it's really directional in nature anyway. It's like your address.
Yeah,
And so I would think that might be your angle.
yeah.
But that's what the rewrite does.
No, the rewrite calls it as commercial speech, but allows it in those criteria that Kevin
But
pointed out.
the end result is it gets what she wants.
Yes, exactly.
So if it gets what she wants and it's been through the LPA and it's working its way through us and it's been through the staff, why would we try to reinvent the wheel?
I was just giving another option, another thought process behind it, so.
Yeah.
Don't confuse me.
The only comment I would make is it probably would make it a little more lawful
What would make it a little more
to say that it's not commercial speech.
Yeah.
Because clearly it's not.
Yeah,
And it's
it's-
directional and directional is allowed.
Yeah, it just depends on how you're looking at it, so. I mean, we can look at it, staff can take a look at that, but yeah, this right here gets at what a council member, Trammell wants to get.
So, Steve, if you could help me for a second. This always gets very technical.
This is
All of these
very
rewrite meetings,
difficult.
so-
This took 2
Right.
years and.
We're adding section F to meet the requirement for this Supreme Court.
Yes.
Is that kind of a
Yep.
good answer,
To,
assumption?
yeah, to be, we call it to be Gilbert compliant,
To
yes.
be, to now, to now in our code, to say that you could have a residential commercial sign. So now we're kind of meeting the Supreme Court.
Yeah, because we're regulating it by time, place, manner.
Right, but where else so then where does it say in there about the no home, you can't have the sign for your home occupation? Is that somewhere separate then?
Yeah, I believe there, I'd have to take a look at to where it
It's okay.
specifically says, it's not in the sign code.
So-
It'd either be in the definition of home occupation or something where it says you can't have
Okay.
the,
So do
but
we
it would
need-
also be, a home occupation by definition happens in a residential district. And so that first upper, where it's the big gray block where it says NA, freestanding or.
Do we need to add underneath F in this area, no home occupation signs? Like, does it need, because if I read this right now, I can go put a sign up in my front yard if it's permanent, and if it's set back 10 feet and not to exceed 60 square feet. Doesn't say what kind of commercial.
Can you pull those?
I should know if we need to clarify, like, do we need to add
Yeah,
that?
can you scroll to those so I can see them real quick, Daniel?
It's page 6, section F under, 8, special signs.
Yeah.
Same one mine's yellow. Keep going down under F. Or, I'm not sure where you're at.
For common property,
Residential commercial signs.
but place is on common property, it's not in front of your own.
Place is located on common property,
Yeah.
owned by homeowners or property owners associated at the entrance to residential development.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Not my house?
So the
means the-
examples are Destiny East, Sovereign Isle, Holiday Isle has a sign, there are several within
It's
the
not in front of
city.
your home, just at the front of the subdivision.
Common property like the HOA, common
It's
areas.
the HOA's property, yes.
Okay, I apologize. I was completely reading this
okay.
as my residence.
No, yeah. So the table of allowances is pretty clear that a freestanding is governed by F, and then the fixed is not allowed. And so the F, table of allowances for commercial signage. Table 8.02-1. So permanent commercial signage is not allowed in any residential district attached. Freestanding, C 80304F, and it specifically says it's only for homeowner or property owner association. So
Correct.
I think that's what y'all wanted. I think that's good.
I would say that's
Yeah.
That's the point.
Yeah.
The whole purpose of that is to allow
Yeah.
for these subdivision signs, because if we just outright banned it altogether, by the way that commercial speech is defined and subdivisions being,
And
that
most
sign
of-
being defined as commercial
Yeah.
speech.
Most of those are 501c4, so they are commercial by their very nature, by the way they are established. So they're not a nonprofit, they're a not-for-profit homeowner association or condo association
Yeah.
or whatever. Now, would this apply to, I don't want to get too technical here, would this apply to a condo association that is not established as an HOA, but is actually established as a condo association? That might be a Kim question. Because they would want their sign too.
I think that the intent, you're technically raising something, but I think the intent would be to include it, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, most condo associations or condos have a common area that has a common ownership, and that's,
Some were established as HOAs, but some were established as condo associations.
we can just do common ownership. We can change the language to say common
Okay.
ownership,
Okay.
so.
Well, we're not going to say common ownership, because then we'll get every married
I'm
couple.
just going to say that is not what we want to say
But well, we
exactly.
can revise it to make it,
We can use
To
the
address it.
definition of whatever the state uses for that type of association.
But we also just want to manage the fact that we've already got throughout the city, these neighborhoods that are already established, so that we don't spin things around and get people all like, wait a minute, what are they doing? Are they changing? We're not changing anything. We're letting that be proper
Yeah.
of what we need to be part of the neighborhood that you're entering, that signage.
Yep.
Correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not worried as much about the neighborhood HOAs, because they're all, as far, everyone that I know of is an HOA. But I am worried about all these condos that have their signs that says, here's Silver Shells, or here's Silver Towers, or here's whatever, that are not established as HOAs. So just make sure that however we do it through language in that paragraph F, that we, homeowner or property owner association, the condo associations might use that interchangeably as property owner associations. I
Okay.
don't know, just make sure they're okay.
We don't.
Because we have a lot of condos in this town that want their dang sign out there.
I think property associations does cover it, but we'll just add, I'm thinking we just say homeowners associations, condo associations, and property owners associations, and then
We'll get that.
Have a
we'll get that
POA.
change made.
Well, I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Wood?
That now leads me to a question, because my neighborhood is not an HOA, it's not a condo association, and it's not a property association. So I have a neighborhood sign, so is that now is the definition gonna catch my sign now?
I think that's where we need to make sure that you're included, because you don't want to take Quail Run down. You want to leave that signage there.
you just have a sign at the entrance, right? No other
Correct.
common areas? Okay.
Yep, correct.
Yeah, so
Okay.
you'd have it approved when you had your that would have been
Yes,
approved
correct.
when you had your development order and all that, but
Okay, just want to make sure.
And I assume Kel Air would be the same,
Yes.
right?
exactly.
Yeah, and anything approved prior to this change would be a nonconformity, so, and they can remain, so,
We're not,
certain circumstances.
I just have a question about the temporary. It says 180 days. Where did we get 180 days? To me, that's very long for a temporary sign.
It's what we have in the code right now for temporary signage.
Geez,
Yes, you can shorten
Yeah,
it.
absolutely.
yeah,
I think 90 days is plenty long enough for,
I do too.
I wouldn't go past 90. I'd even say 30 is really a true temporary. But if you're looking at a new development and they're putting their signage up and they don't have their permanent one ready, I'd say 90 days. They should have that concrete created, whatever, and slab laid.
Yep. Okay.
Agree?
Yeah,
90 is the number you're shooting for?
What-
Yeah,
what if
30
you
might be a
did-
little short.
What if you did something that, like, compared it to an event, like said 30 days prior to an event or 90 days prior to an event? That way, depending on what was going on, you'd have the appropriate
Yes.
signage for it.
yes,
Because some events might last a month and some might last a day. I don't know, just a thought.
Well, and a lot of the permits last 2 years, so that, you know, it doesn't make any sense to me. It was just kind of a
Yep.
weird thing, but I just thought that, for temporary, I thought that was a little long.
So getting back to the first example, because that's, I won't say the most egregious. I'm building a building. I could. Get ready to, I think. But I'm building a bank. And I've got my temporary, says commercial, right? Temporary sign, soon to be home of, Destin Bagby Bank. Under this, it could stay up 180 days.
So, yeah, so there's provisions per the building code that say that a construction sign needs to go up for certain specific public safety purposes.
Right.
So we would consider that part of that whole thing.
Okay, that's usually the contractor sign and
Yeah.
the sub signs and
Yeah.
the paving guys.
It would fall under that 180 days, but if we tie, like Kim was saying, to an event, right?
Yes.
You can put it up 90 days prior to construction, and it's gotta come down, 2 days after a certificate of occupancy. Or unless, like permanent signage is established.
Okay, well, then that could be 2 years long that the
Yeah.
temporary sign is. Okay.
Yeah,
That could.
I just want to make sure we cover it, think.
But
through
progress
some of
is
these-
being made in that 2 years.
Yeah, no, I get
Yeah.
that. I just,
Yeah.
I don't want
yeah,
somebody calling us going, they've had their sign up 91 days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, they're just starting to go vertical,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, and we can put in there, development activity, we can write, exceptions or criteria for certain activity, but again, it's applicable to all of that type of temporary commercial speech.
That's fine.
Not
I
just.
trust y'all
yeah.
to solve it.
Yeah.
I'm just here asking questions to make sure, have we thought about this or have we thought about that?
Yes, sir. I think so.
What?
Next slide.
Oh, he's going next, okay.
Okay, sign height. I think I hit on it
No, I
earlier.
had-
Right now, ground signs can go 26 feet. Right now, in the draft, like I said, it's broken out by zoning district, has, some zone districts have different ground sign height allowances. Attached signs, we're not changing, still can't go above the cornice, can't be placed on top of the roof, can't be any of that sort of stuff. But so the sign height is kind of particular to the ground signs, the freestanding signs. So take a look at the permanent signage for ground signs and, 26 feet is what we kept in the table for the commercial, industrial, and institutional uses. All the mixed use districts got 8 feet sign height, and that was the recommendation made by LPA. And then there's, I think, a few other thing in residential districts for temporary signage, temporary freestanding signage. I think we limited it to 8 because that was the max height that was allowed in the current code that was specific to real estate signage. What else? Yeah. Any questions on that? Any concerns? Any discussion on the 8-foot limitation for mixed-use districts? Saw a finger. Sign height, ground signs for sign height. Sign height in general. Well, that would be projection. We're talking about height. It's not allowed. Signs can't be in the right of way. Sidewalks are generally in the right of way. And if it's not in the right of way, if the sidewalk meanders onto private property through an easement, then there would be a vertical clearance if it is over the sidewalk. But generally, for the most part, and I believe if you look at the chart, there's a setback of 10 feet. So that sidewalk is probably not even going to be existing beyond 10 feet of the setback. So.
Okay, well, one thing, as I thought through this, so I'm driving down 98, and everything's at 8 feet maximum height. I mean, it's like little dominoes. Okay, I passed that. And I'm a no sign guy, so smaller is better, but is there a way that we could say 90% of the sign has to be 8 feet or lower, but if say I want to do a big D,
Yeah, that's absolutely an
and
option.
then put Dewey's on the harbor or whatever, and there's a little 2-foot section that goes 2 feet above that, and then but the other 8 feet of
Yeah.
it or 10 feet of it, depending on how much frontage he has, is below. It looks almost, as I picture it, it almost looks too sterile, that every
Okay.
sign is, this far off the sidewalk, and they're all 8 feet high, and they're all,
Yeah.
depending on their frontage, I mean,
Yeah.
that's really the thing that's gonna differentiate the size of the signs is, if I have 150 feet, and she only has 50 feet, well, I got a bigger sign, or I have more square footage, but we're still both at 8 feet.
Yeah.
So,
You could do the percentage of the width, 90% of it's got to be below 8 feet. You could do an average height, not to exceed a maximum height of, say 15, right? And you do the average based on the width of the sign and the height of the sign, wherever that average is. That's got to be below, 50% of it's got to be below 8 feet. There's a litany of different ways to do that. So if that's something that council wants us to do, we
Well,
can take a look.
and I don't know, because I've seen it both ways. I've seen, the city has to approve the sign color, the city has to approve the sign, the size of the sign, the font of the letters,
Yeah.
and to me, that's just a little
Yeah.
too much government, okay? But then I see, okay, somebody has a rooster, like Broken Egg or something. So they have a rooster on the far left side of or the far right side of their sign, and it just says another Broken Egg or something.
Yeah.
Or somebody has something that differentiates their sign from the 88 signs that are all at 8 feet high.
Is the 90% below
I
8 feet or
just pulled that out of
average?
the air.
Yeah.
Y'all are the experts. I trust the LPA. Yeah.
They're all the same.
Yeah, like boop, boop, boop,
Yeah.
boop.
Okay.
Because I don't think you need signs with people's phones these days.
I
but
didn't say it.
I know a lot of people do like that, and it, sometimes when I'm going to eat on the harbor, I'm like, have we gone past Dewey's yet? It's like,
Yeah, understood. Okay, we'll take a look
I
at
look
that.
for the park now. Oh, there it is. Okay, cool.
Can't miss that one.
Yeah.
I think, yep, I'm sorry, what he's just asking for is a little variation, I suppose. And we had the same problem when we had a 200-foot height limit for buildings in Destin that had been imposed by the Air Force for years and years and years. They were all exactly the same.
Yeah.
Which, kind of dull.
Looked like you took a chainsaw and just did all the condos all day out. Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. 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 So any other comments on sign height?
Sandy, did you have something else you wanted?
No, I like the idea of varying it. I like the idea of varying it.
Okay.
I'm not real sure I like going below the 8 feet, though. I would like to vary it up higher than the 8 feet, because I think that allows for traffic on the road and trucks and everything else that, I'm in my little short car, and there's a truck right here, and I can't see the sign because, that kind of thing.
We'll take a look at some things, given that, what we'll do is we'll take a look at we'll do a percentage of the width, right? We'll take a look at the average. We'll see what is probably gonna be the most simple, and the easiest to enforce and regulate.
Yes,
So, and that's what we'll bring forward.
okay.
Anything else on sign height? Awesome. Next slide.
Size.
Okay, vehicle signs, here we are. This one's long-winded, so I'm gonna step off to the side for a second. There we go. All right, so vehicle signs. The definition in there, the current definition right there says a sign, any sign affixed to a vehicle, right? The prohibition in the sign code currently reads, and try to follow me here, because this is the difficult part of it. Vehicle signs with a total sign area on any vehicle in excess of 10 square feet when the vehicle is not regularly used in the conduct of the business advertised on the vehicle. A vehicle used primarily for advertising for the purpose of providing transportation for owners or employees of the occupant of the occupancy advertised on the vehicle shall not be considered a vehicle used in the conduct of this business. So what that's saying is, what is prohibited here is signs that have, vehicles that have signs on them in excess of 10 square feet when it's not used in the conduct of the business, okay? So a FedEx truck, UPS truck, right? Those signs, it may not look like it, but when you walk up to them, the UPS emblem, the FedEx, they're massive. They're probably 20 square feet, right? So that's in excess of 10 square feet. But they're only used when they're being used for delivery, right? So they're exempt because of that second question, or because that exemption when not regularly used, okay? So, but what does regularly used mean, right? So
Would that be like Destin Harvest signs? They have a truck that goes and picks up food from all the restaurants and the grocery stores and all this and takes it to shelters and
I would say
other-
that's probably used regularly in the conduct of
is.
the business.
So they're okay?
They're
with-
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is more for realtor signs or whatever, where
Yeah.
you do the
And the
silk screen
pizza
on your
delivery
truck.
pizza delivery, we got in an argument once with an individual about, hey, well, I use my car to deliver pizza, so you're telling me I can't put my, Pizza Hut little thing on top? I'm like, no, because that's not in excess of 10 square feet. So
I can still have my campaign signs on the side of my car.
you can, as long as they don't exceed 10 square feet.
Oh, no, they're just,
So, so yeah, it's clear to some. It's very unclear to a lot other people. So it's just difficult. So it needs to change, right? So the proposed definition that we propose for this, and this would go into the definitions, would be any sign on a vehicle more than 4 square feet that is not either painted or affixed and flush with the vehicle. I'm sorry, this is a vehicle sign prohibition. Sorry. So any sign on a vehicle more than 4 square feet that is not either painted or affixed and flush with the vehicle's body in wrap form. Okay. So if you have to weld or jig or screw or bolt or whatever your sign to your vehicle, the very end of that says that any sign that is not attached to the vehicle in the manner considered that is attached to any vehicle in these manners is considered a portable sign. So if it's not painted, if it's not wrapped and flush with the body, it's considered a portable sign, which above or below that is prohibited.
Does that apply to FedEx trucks?
It does, because they're painted and affixed and flat and flush with the body of the vehicle.
So as long as it's painted, then there's no size restriction?
No. Because at the end of the day, the vehicles are,
Kind of 24/7 advertisement.
yeah.
Yeah, let me ask you a question about typically political campaign signs will end up in the back of pickup trucks and things like that. Are we going to prohibit those now?
They're prohibited now because they're considered portable signs.
Well, I sure see an awful lot of them during campaigns.
I was going to say, did we not enforce it this past campaign?
If you're going to allow temporary signs
You could call it
before
a
and after
temporary
an
sign?
event, then the election would be the event and they're going to be allowed.
Well, there's a good interpretation.
That's why the event situation makes sense when we
Yes.
want to allow temporary signs, regardless
Yeah,
of their
which is-
content.
Which is, I'm
Well,
trying trying to figure out, because the most protected speech of all under federal law is political speech, so we want to be careful with that.
Absolutely.
Where, you said there's already a rule about portable signs?
Yes. In Article 16, Section 1605, 6? In the current LDC, Article 16, there's. Oh, in the current proposal, it's in that same section that Daniel just had up.
Can you please see if you can find that?
So
Don't mind.
in the draft, it's right here in, and then in the existing LDC, it is L.
Portable signs. Oh, so
Correct.
you're saying that, and we have a definition of portable signs somewhere already?
In
currently?
the glossary,
In the current glossary?
in the current glossary and draft glossary.
Okay. What is that definition, if you don't mind?
Can you read it, Daniel?
Yeah, any sign which is designed to be transported by a trailer or on its own wheels or to be mobile when not permanently attached to a building or to the ground by means of a footing. The phrase portable sign includes a sign whose wheels have been removed and which has been converted to an A or T frame sign attached temporarily to the ground.
I mean, going off that definition, we might want to look at updating that as well. Because if we're talking about just A and T frames, I mean, most of the signs that people were throwing in the back of their trucks aren't A and T frames.
Yeah, but it's, read it again, Daniel.
Any sign which is designed to be transported by a trailer or on its own wheels or to be mobile when not permanently attached to a building
So
or
stop right there. So, or mobile or attached permanently to a building or ground. So it's mobile because it's attached to a vehicle, not ground or building, so therefore it's portable. So the definition, I don't believe in the glossary that we'll review here once we finish this, changes that. If there are changes that council wants made to that, we can make those, but I think that's a pretty solid.
You said building. Building wasn't in the definition, though.
Attached permanently to what?
The ground?
when not permanently attached to a building or to the ground by means of a footing.
Okay. Okay.
Just,
So I have just one quick question. So a box van, somebody can park a box van out there, have it wrapped as a permanent advertisement, just leave it parked out in front of a,
No, it has to be used in the regular operation of the business.
okay.
We do change the definition in the rewrite, so
In-
when we.
of portable?
It's different, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, well, now, so you want me to just read it to you?
yeah, please.
So now it's going to say, a sign whose principal supporting structure is intended by design and construction to be used by resting upon the ground for support and may be easily moved or relocated for reuse. Portable signs shall include, but are not limited to, signs mounted upon a trailer, bench, wheeled carrier, or other non-motorized mobile structure or motorized vehicle with or without wheels.
does that include a boat?
With or without wheels, I'd say so.
Okay,
So that, yeah, that's a little more broad than what we currently have, so.
So I know this is silly, but let's probably put the cat in the bag or something, but I'm sure this is like there's certain people that this is being written to clear up, so if I'm gonna fight this and I didn't attach my sign to the truck, it's just sitting there, do we need to change this wording? Because
What
it
do
says.
you mean it's just sitting there?
Well, if I just place it on my truck, it's not attached to the truck. So do we need to change that language so or is that not a big deal? Like it says, any sign that is attached to a vehicle in these manners is a portable sign. So in theory, if I just set it in there, I'm not attaching anything.
Yeah, we could add that, absolutely.
I mean, this
Yeah.
particular sign, this particular item, you know,
But
we
if
had
it's-
people
if
come
it's-
after us for it, so.
Yeah, if you're just gonna place a vehicle, or a sign in the back of
It
your.
doesn't say attached anymore in the new code.
Well, that's what-
So I'm just saying in the definition of a portable sign.
It's not the definition, but in the section B.
so if it's an A-frame in the back of a pickup,
That's a portable sign.
I just, I'm looking at specifically the wording, and it says, any sign that is attached to any vehicle in these manners is considered a portable sign. And attach is, you said welding, bolting, similarly fastened and is prohibited, all these things. But if I come out
I think that's
there
supposed to
and I
say
put
that
this
is.
sign
I
right
think
in
what
my bed
that's
of my
supposed to
truck-
say, hold on, I think there's a little confusion, I apologize. I think that's supposed to read is not attached in the manners listed above is considered a portable sign, because what we want are the ones that are painted or affixed in a wrap.
Right.
So we'll
Either
take
way,
yeah.
I would just double check
Yeah.
it because I know
yeah.
this particular item.
Yeah. So, but even if you were, hopefully you're not just gonna take a 10 square foot sign, place it in the back of your truck and drive around without securing it somehow, right?
Can't assume that.
I know you can't. I'm just hoping you wouldn't, right? But yeah, we can add 4 square feet. So we can add language that if it's placed in a vehicle or placed on a vehicle.
I just know that I feel, I mean, y'all's training must have been great today, I'm sure. I almost wish I would have come just to be part of it. I mean, I feel bad sometimes for all of this stuff. Like, I feel the pain for what all y'all have to go through.
Thank you.
So for a particular item that in the past year has specifically, we've gone back and forth with the particular person on, I just would, somebody might still try to find a way around it.
Look, we're not ignorant.
And
of
I
the
had a
fact
campaign
that
sign in my
somebody
truck,
is
too.
going to be clever enough to find some loophole, right? Like, there's just no way to make any code ironclad. We can do as much as we possibly can, and then and get it to a really good spot, right? But like Lewis has said in the past, you write your code for what you want, not for what you don't want. So,
Okay, so y'all have confused me sufficiently. The A-frame with big 100-foot, square-foot signs
that's
in
massive.
the back of the pickup truck. If the A-frame is attached, strapped in, bolted, whatever, it's not allowed?
It's not allowed.
Okay, if it's just sitting in there, because the weight of an A-frame with, 100 square foot signs on it, you can make it pretty heavy.
Yeah.
And if you're not driving 75 miles an hour,
Yeah.
it'll just sit there. So that is allowed?
No, what we need to do is just delete the second half of the sentence. All it needs to say is that part where it says if it protrudes from the vehicle, it's illegal. We're just gonna leave it like that. We don't
Okay.
have to add, and if it's, we'll just
Yeah.
take that right out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so now, the question that I really wanted to ask before y'all confused me was, there are certain contractors or subcontractors. Cox has a lot of them, and I don't know how big these signs are. I don't think they're more than 4 square feet, but I know Cox has a bunch. I know that UPS uses them during the Christmas time, where it's a UPS contractor, and it's just some white van, and it's a magnetic sign, but they say, because when
If-
they drive up to your house, they,
Yeah, if it's flush, if it's a magnet and it's flush on the body, that's fine.
okay, because it's not flush like a wrap, but
It-
if a
but
magnetic sign is considered flush, I'm happy.
yeah, the magnetic sign, it's not, it might be protruding like
Yeah.
a 16th of an inch. Yeah, that's, yeah. We're talking, it's like they took a bolt in a structure of some sort and bolted it or welded it to the body.
Stop the bolting and
now it's
attaching. We're taking that out.
using it as an example,
know.
Kim.
We can't do that.
And a flag falls
Right,
under
do
the
it.
same, like if they put a flag back there, it falls under the same.
Flags are, and I apologize if I failed to put a slide in here. We can talk about flags here in a minute.
Yeah, because that was my last question was, while we were on campaign signs and A-frames and stuff, a lot of people are going to flags now. Big flags.
Just say it's me, Jim. I did it, Kevin Schmidt.
Trump actually beat you to it, so, and all of his followers, yeah, I don't worry about you, but allowed or not allowed, if I put a 5x8 flag on the back of my pickup truck and drive around town, because that's political speech. Mr. Nestor has pointed out.
And my understanding is that's exempt.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll have to take a look at it. Yeah,
It's the distraction,
Yeah.
the flapping like this when you're
yeah,
trying to drive.
but that would be
is
more
dangerous.
of a traffic violation, and the city doesn't regulate traffic violations. So we'd have to look at it from a use standpoint. So let me. I don't know the answer off the top of my head standing here either. I know that's that's strange, but let me think. Let me get with the team, think about that one on the flags. But are we done on this one? Vehicle signage?
I withdraw my question about the flag.
Steve, one question. If you've got a maximum square feet of 10 square feet, is that per vehicle or per side of the vehicle? Can I have one on each side?
Yeah, it's per sign, and so the way signs are, if they're parallel, right, it's considered one sign face. So you can, I would consider each one their a sign in and of itself, and it wouldn't prohibit you from doing both on either side.
I could have, if it's a maximum of 4 square feet, I can have one on each side of the vehicle.
But would they both be 4 square feet, or would they be
Yes.
2 square feet on each side?
That's
No,
what
it'd
I'm
be
trying to
4
get
square
to
feet
is-
on both sides.
Okay. I think we need to kind of limit that.
Look, we can sit here and think about this sort of stuff all night long when it comes to this stuff. And it's almost inconsequential when it comes to that sort of stuff. Like, is it 4 square feet on, if it's 10 square feet total, can we only have 5 on this side, 5 on that side? The intent is just to limit people from attaching massive signs to their vehicles and driving around town. The flush nature of a sign on a car is not what the problem is. At a magistrate hearing, I was asked about Real Joy signs. I didn't know what they were talking about at the time, but I happened to go to an office right next door to it. Their entire van is covered with Real Joy on there, right? Are we going to sit there and say they're no longer allowed? No, they're flush. They're not causing a problem. They're used in the regular duties of the business, So, yeah, they're meeting the intent of what a vehicle sign is supposed to be. So,
All right.
all right.
Let's go.
Next slide. Okay, digital signs. And I think this is the last slide, and then we'll get to flags. So I apologize, I forgot to put that slide in here. But digital signage, we currently have digital allowances up to 60 square feet. The LPA recommended to prohibit them, and then also to amortize them, and give them 6 years from whenever it's adopted to utilize them, and then they've got to come down after 6 years. So if adopted, we would not approve any digital signage moving forward. And then within 6 years, if somebody needs to replace one, they wouldn't be able to replace it. And they'd have to replace it with something that is compliant. And then at the 6 years, any that exist would have to come down. And that would be applicable across the entire city.
Let me ask just a couple of questions. Of course, a lot of us business folks have those signs.
Sir.
So do a number of churches, every school in the Okaloosa County School District. So we would tell the schools they can't have their digital signs. We would tell all the business owners. I tried to count today and lost count.
Jim, didn't you drive it today?
I drove the bridge to the Walton County line and back. I counted 65 digital signs.
Yeah, and so that's the kind of upheaval that's going to be pretty vehemently opposed, I would predict. And I'm not sure what it is, other than we just don't like the way they look, that we're going to accomplish. From a safety point, we already regulate that they can't have flashing lights, that they can't change the content quicker than 10 seconds. And so it also bothers me that we have digital billboards that clearly we're not going to get rid of in 6 years. So, you know, I may be the lone ranger here, but telling the businesses and the schools and the churches that they can't have their digital signs that are quite expensive is just not a step I would be willing to go to.
And there are ways to, you know, meet middle ground. You can create corridors where they're not allowed, where they wouldn't be allowed, because they're regulated as a special sign. We could regulate them as a special sign and regulate what zoning districts they're allowed in, and target certain districts where they would be and where they wouldn't be allowed. So,
And I would suggest that we try to meet some middle ground here, because otherwise we're about to get into a firestorm that is going to be very, very severe. Because as you see, as we come off the bridge, there are some rather large digital signs, and those things are worth an awful lot of money. So I would say we proceed with caution, and if we need to stretch the amortization out, that's another possible. Of course, that's what we've done with the billboards. We were going to give them a schedule 25 years ago, and they're, as you know, still here.
yep, as of 97, 7
You know,
years. So.
saying that we're not going to put any new ones, that, I guess, is a possibility. But to go and tell 56 people that, or whatever the number is, and I think it's probably more than that, you can't have your digital sign anymore, I have a problem with that.
So in a compromise, because my concern, I'd get rid of every single one of them today and just pay the lawyers. But as a fiduciary, I would probably look at an amortization schedule of 10 years. And maybe 15 or 12, probably 12 on the billboards, because those do cost a lot of money.
I think those would be regulated differently, correct, Kim?
There's a difference between on-premises and off-premises signs. So these, I think what we're talking about now is the on-premises sign.
Correct.
Where, you know, a restaurant, like Councilmember Destin, he has a digital sign, just like the
Okay.
fleet next door, just like most people on the harbor
Right.
and the schools
Right.
and the churches. They have digital signs advertising what's on their property. But a billboard is considered an off-premises sign because they are a sign for the purpose of no local business, just advertising whoever
Right.
wants to
Okay.
pay them.
So on premise, I would probably go 10 years amortization. I would exempt public, so schools or churches also. Not sure I would exempt homeowners associations or something like that.
You could do institutional uses.
Yeah.
That'd probably be the cleanest
Yeah.
route.
Yeah, because schools, you know, the football game Friday night or Thursday night for the middle school.
We don't have a school in our city that would help with that.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's actually
Only
my
have
next
one school in
question,
the city.
is that everything we're talking about is great, and I agree where we're headed, but it's all for naught when you get out past Walmart, okay? Because, which I drive every single day, 3 or 4 times. And, you know, that just pushes all those electronic signs to the north side of 98. And the ones that really need to go are the TV screens, I call them. Yeah, that are advertising, you know, I mean, they can have live, hey, look at us walking through the aisle of this shop and look at the swimsuit or whatever. That, I don't mind the little red letter dot thing, you know, that.
Or the gas station displays.
Yeah.
Well, those are videos, which
Yeah.
are different. And maybe that's a point where you put the
Regulate the size of them too, which is another big difference, obviously,
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
massive billboards to,
I would say there's a distinction between live videos and just the message boards.
Yeah, static numbers, something like
Right.
that. Okay. All right.
Oh, yeah, I have some things on this.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't mean to imply that we were ending.
I thought that's it too. All right, here we go.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, Kevin, you're not allowed. You're done for the
No,
night.
you're
So
good.
you met your
So,
quota.
digital signage is prohibited and strictly not permitted within the city of limits of Destin. Have we had that in there for a long time?
No, that's brand new. That's what the recommendation from the LPA was.
Oh, sorry, this one's not yellow. So we have not had a restriction
No,
on digital.
we allow digital signage now up to 60 square feet.
Okay,
have-
that
we
kind
have
of,
some-
that's why I was confused. It's not yellow. I'm like, well, why are we allowing it then?
So
It's because it's it's explaining the LPA recommendations, it wasn't in
No,
staff's.
this is the draft.
yeah, there's portions of the draft that are highlighted for certain purposes. If it's underlined, it's brand new. If it's struck out, that's what we're
Well, it's
wanting
not
to take
underlined
out.
either, so it's all good. But you're answering it, so it's all good now. This right here. It's okay. That's what, I'm like, why are we letting all these digital signs, come
I had
around?
one job, I'm sorry.
So
The prohibition on digital signage in the draft is brand new. That does not exist in the current code.
Okay. So then I guess some of my questions might be irrelevant then because I was basing it off of this is the current code. No. So like replacing a digital sign, can you do that right now?
Right now, you can, yes.
Right now you can, but with the draft.
If
you
the
can't.
draft, with that language right there,
Okay.
it would not be able to be
Okay,
replaced.
good. And then it talks about, apologies, let me go up. This is not specifically about digital signs, but can I ask it? Is it
Sure.
okay? Above that, and prohibited signs, and I'm assuming if this is current or not, letter G, about flashing lights and signs,
Yep, that's current.
that's current. So we don't allow currently flashing signs.
We don't allow signs that have flashing elements on it, correct?
And is that different than a digital sign?
Yeah, it could be because you could have lights around a sign that flash.
It's not allowed.
That's not allowed, correct?
That's current, okay. String of light bulbs, regardless of how mounted when used on premises with a commercial land use classification, other than traditional holiday decorations and string of lights used to enhance landscaping.
That's current.
So if my outside restaurant has lights hanging above, you're not allowed.
Correct.
I would strike that, in my opinion. I don't think it's necessary. And if we already have people doing it, so let's either go shut it down or I think it should be striked. Unless there's a reason why it shouldn't be striked, in y'all's opinion.
It's just dependent upon.
I'd rather put less things in
I've
there.
never seen that in a code when it's specific to lights like that.
Right.
But our definition of a sign is very, very, very broad, the current definition.
Right.
And basically is anything that attracts attention from the public right away.
Okay.
So lights obviously attract attention, and therefore a string of light bulbs could be considered signage.
I mean, I'm
So-
open to getting rid of it if it
Yeah,
helps,
but it's when the way that we need to move with signage in the charts and your maximum square footages and maximum
Right.
signage, right? How do you calculate the square footage of a string of light bulbs?
Yeah, good luck.
So
Section, letter O, about abandoned and discontinued signs, that's current?
that is, yes.
So it says, in determining whether a sign is abandoned or discontinued, this following shall be considered. Whether the sign identifies correct directions, location, or descriptions, wait, where is it? Like if it's not open anymore or something. Whether
Yeah, if a business is closed,
it's not allowed.
it would be considered abandoned after, I
Okay.
believe, 6 months. I can't
months.
remember.
Okay.
And therefore would not be allowed, yeah.
Going back now to the digital thing, I mean, I like the 6 years. I think 6 years is plenty. I don't want to affect the institutional people, so yeah, the churches and the schools. But I think I only know of one school, Destin Elementary School, that would affect. I know Fort Walton Beach High School actually put a permanent sign over their digital sign because they didn't like the digital one. So not all schools would be upset with it. But we talked about digital billboards, and I think in the council, we don't like those, I think from my understanding. So if the reason to get rid of a lot of that was because of the brightness and this and that, to me, we should have the same feelings towards the digital business signs as well. You know, if we're upset with the visual corridor of 98, that's what some of the reasons were some of the council gave. If we're upset about the brightness of a digital billboard, then those business signs that are, 6 feet by 10 feet, literally a billboard. It's a small billboard with digital, LDB or whoever. They all have them, it's like a TV screen out there. We should feel the same about that we do the digital billboard, in my opinion. So like, I would rather see, if, Mr. Bagby says he wants to get rid of them, let's get rid of them, because if we all want a beautiful corridor, then billboard, business sign should be the same. And I know that's gonna be going guns blazing or a fight, and that's fine. I would welcome the public here when that time comes, but I know we're not all gonna agree on that, but hopefully y'all can bring it back somehow, figuring out a starting point, because that's gonna be interesting. I get it. But I just wish we would all take that same consideration to the corridor that we do on the billboards. That's my only thoughts, but I like it so far here. I'll let you guys in it. Thank you.
I see Mr. Woods trying to step in.
Okay, so I guess tonight I'm not the LPA chairman because I didn't get reappointed last night, so I'm on my own. So I'm confused. So Kevin, you used the word corridor. I assume you're talking 98 corridor. Are we talking citywide or a corridor?
I'm talking the 98 corridor that people said they want to stand on the Destin Bridge and look down 98 and not see digital billboards. Well, you're seeing digital business signs, so it's the same thing in my opinion.
So we say we're talking about getting rid of digital signs in the corridor or citywide? Those are two different things.
Oh, I hear you. I mean, I think the code should be citywide, but I'm just using the argument that in my opinion, the perspective of the corridor of billboards should be the same for the corridor of business signs. But no.
From what I've heard, it seems like digital signage is compromise, a longer amortization period, and then allow the institutional uses. So basically, they would only be allowed in the institutional zoning district, which if we regulate digital signage as a special sign, we can regulate where it goes by zoning district. But the rest of the city wouldn't be allowed. So that's how we would be doing that, because we'd be regulating as a special sign and time, place, manner where these special signs can and cannot go.
I was going to comment on, I'm not sure that will cover all our institutional uses. Some of our institutional uses may not be in institutional zoning. We have to look at that issue.
Yep. We can also define what institutional zoning uses are, which
Yep.
I'm pretty sure we do already in our comp plan.
Well, that may
and
fix it then.
So, yeah.
On, back to something Kevin and I agree on, the lights. Many times those lights are not used to draw attraction. They're used for safety purposes. And I'd hate to see us say, okay, you got to keep this part of the property dark because you're not allowed to have these overhanging lights. So on that one, I would like to see us move forward. And on the other issue, of course, we disagree. And in my mind, there's a difference between the digital billboards and the smaller signs that are used by businesses. The dancing around videos, they're distracting. So it wouldn't break my heart to see that we don't do that. So hopefully you'll come up with something we can all compromise on and agree with.
Cross your fingers that we do.
You could also change the timing of the lighting. Right now, we have 10 seconds in our code. You could always slow it longer, right?
I think
Slow
it needs
down.
to be at least 15.
As a starting point, because that's cheaper than the amortization. If that happens over 6 or 10 years or whatever council decides, but you can change the 10-second timing much faster. Immediate, like you could probably, push a button and.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could. And I think you got some testimony from Crestview and some other cities that was in the record that they could find that it made no difference at all. If it's a safety issue, which obviously it's not.
I was going to make a recommendation on the string lights because I'm like Dewey, some of them are used for vision purposes. But I think if they're not seen by the road or the traffic going down the road, then I think they would be fine under an awning or something like that where
Yeah,
It's not distracting from the street.
that's what I was getting at with the definition of a sign, is if if it's meant to be viewed from public right of way or public property, if it's intended to. So that's why I was saying it's very broad, but if they're not intended to be as an advertisement and it's behind and back and it's, you know, it's clearly intended to be lighting for the patio, you know, then I wouldn't consider that a sign and therefore prohibited per this code. But again, why even, like I said, the way we have to go with the chart and the maximum square footages of those, how do you measure the square footage of a string of light bulbs? And so now we're gonna get into, okay, well, you got a string of light bulbs, now I gotta come out and measure each light bulb and add that to your maximum allowances, and so.
Well, and we do, there is a residence very close to where our new crosstown connector is going to butt into another azalea there, that particular place, the fence is got string lights, the roof has got string lights.
Is it a
The
residence?
back porch has got string lights.
It's a residence, you
Yes.
said? So
I
they're
mean,
they're not advertising for anything,
It's
though.
lit up like the
Yeah, but they're not doing that to draw people to the property, right? The difference would be if someone's using string lights on a commercial property to draw attention versus on a residential property or my personal home. I like string lights. I think they're great. I love it. Sets a great mood, right? But it's not a mood that I want everyone else enjoying. It's a mood for me and my family. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not doing it to draw people in. So it's a different intent.
Okay.
So that it wouldn't be applicable in that situation.
Okay.
Real quick. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You got a question? No, I was gonna make sure nobody had a question.
It's not about that one. It's back to the 8.0702
No,
digital
we're
signage.
gone. We're moved on.
That was gone? But subsection B, removal and attrition, item 1, all existing digital signage is considered non-conforming as of the adoption of this code. So that means the digital sign at Fuddpuckers is now non-conforming.
Fuddpuckers is different because they're under an annexation agreement that lasts until 2028.
2028, all right.
Every property is different.
2028, they have to tear it down?
2028 is when their annexation agreement ends, and I don't know specifically what that means. I'd have to review. It's been about a year since I've viewed it, but they have some
One job,
special
Stephen.
sign.
One job.
I've got so many right now. So but the annexation agreement specifically addresses signage. So they're beholden to that at least until 2028, and then I don't know what, I'd have to take a look at it, see what allowances there are for it after that.
So, point source of light, that's what we're talking, the turtle lane, in all the turtle ordinances. If you can see the point source of light, so it has to be shielded or it has to be under.
That's if you're in the marine turtle
Right, but what I'm
conservation
saying is
area.
you can use that same language.
Oh,
in the
okay, yeah.
commercial,
Yep,
relating one to
Okay,
the other.
yeah.
And then I will come back, because I'm not sure I hammered it. Most important thing is, after we figure out what we want it to look like, we need to get Okaloosa County to agree, like they have on some other things, that south of the bay, that they will follow whatever,
They'll mirror us.
they'll mirror us, because it does us no good to get rid of all the television
I'll leave that
billboards.
politicking to y'all.
Well, no, I'll go tell them, but we.
No,
we need to
we
give them
we
the
can
like-
definitely
Let
work.
their staff know, this is where we're going. We want to get back to the world's luckiest fishing village, not the Vegas Strip, so.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, next, I think this is the last one of the discussions. What does that say? Freestanding sign.
I think these are the
Oh, these are
public
the public,
comments.
okay, yeah, so let's address flags. Okay? So when I say flag, I'm gonna point to each and every one of you. I'm gonna ask you, what does the flag mean? What does the flag mean to you, Kevin?
Something that waves in the air.
Okay. Tori?
Anything with a vertical structure supporting a horizontal plane.
Dewey?
Traditional flags with, like Kevin said, a flag is a flag. What's going to get interesting is about defining what the flag says. And we all know that's going to
Teresa?
be sticky, sticky, sticky.
He's acting mayor pro tem now. He can do what he needs to do. Exactly what both Kevin and Dewey said.
Okay. Jim?
Anything, I'm sorry, anything that flies and conveys a message.
Okay.
I'll agree with them.
Okay.
It's attached at one or more points, but not all around.
So out of all those, I like Kevin's the most because it's the simplest and it's the straightforward, right? And it doesn't get at what it says, it just gets at what it is, right? And at the end of the day, it's a piece of fabric that can flap in the wind, and it's generally only attached on one side, right? I think we can all agree to that, right? We refer to the American flag, right? What do we call that in the military? What do we call the American flag in the military?
Old Glory.
The colors, or it's thank you, there's three, sorry, a standard, right? It's a standard, right? So when you separate exemptions of flags, right? When you say flags are exempted from the sign code, you're exempting anything pretty much in the form of what a flag is, which is just a piece of material that flaps in the wind attached at one side, right? So you're exempting all of that. But to Dewey's point, it depends on what it says, right? I mean, McDonald's always flies their flag right underneath the American flag, right? It's commercial speech. The American flag is not. The McDonald's flag is, right? So when you separate what you actually want to exempt, which is the standards of political, nonprofit, or other, jurisdictional entities, right? You're actually exempting out what you want, and then you can regulate what a flag is and where it can go and how it can be time, place, manner, okay? So that's what the code has done. And I really wish I had put a slide together, and I apologize for that, because then I'd point you to the sections of where they are. But that's what we have done in this code section. We have bifurcated what we want to exempt from flag. So, go ahead.
What is that blow-up little guy that, whose arms, is he a flag?
That would be a wind device, which is prohibited.
He's what?
It's a wind device, which is prohibited.
So it'd be like a wind feather.
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So,
Because we have some,
just so I'm clear, nothing's really changed then about what's allowed or not allowed?
No, it's just how we do it. And,
Right.
and again, it gets back to, we have to be content neutral.
Sure.
Right.
So, to me, it's kind of like my comments about billboards versus the business signs, right? If Mr. Destin and others or whoever want to have business signs flashing or digital, I think the next business should be able to put up a wind flag and advertise their business. I mean, if the goal of the digital sign for a business on premise is to catch people's eye, to get them in there, I think we should allow a business to put a flag in the front of their premise, on premise. I don't think we should exclude those flags. Is it gonna mess up the corridor, the view corridor again? Of course it is. But if we want a nice view corridor, then let's get rid of the digital signs. You know what I'm saying? So again, for me, if we're gonna let businesses display digitally, let's let a business display a flag. I mean, I'd like to put it in there to allow them to do that, would be my thought.
I think we're in agreement, Kevin. And I think that the real dilemma, and good luck to regulating flags as to content, because clearly that's what we're doing. And if you just say you can only have flags that say certain things.
No, what we're saying is the flag would be considered a wind device, And right now, per the code and the draft, a wind device is prohibited. And if it is allowed, we would regulate it as a temporary, either commercial or non-commercial speech, and then we'd be beholden to those regulations.
Well,
If
I
we allow
understand-
wind devices.
I understand your argument, and I heard it in the $2 million litigation we did 20 years ago, when they said, we're not regulating the content, but they were. And so that's, you know, a flag is a flag unless it says certain things, and then it's not a flag. So if we want to go down that quarter, and if anybody cares enough to take us to court, we'll most likely lose, but maybe nobody cares,
In the current code, though, we actually exempt flags from the sign regulations.
period.
End of story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're
and
exempt.
that's
They're-
the only safe way to do it, in my opinion.
I just want council to know the difference, because
Yeah.
Yeah,
and-
we would, in the draft, it exempts the standards
I
and all that sort of
understand,
stuff.
and that's
so-
different than what we have
Yeah.
now.
Yes.
And what we have now is because we learned that lesson a while back. But maybe nobody cares, so we'll see. But if they do care, we're probably gonna lose.
On top of it, though, I would, you know, for that recommendation that I think Mr. Destin agrees with, though, I would have, you know, requirements, right? So, on the harbor, for example, you know, we know people might be renting slips, or they don't, you know, they're not a business, like, you know, there would have to be requirements to make sure it's a legitimate business on that premise. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Oh, yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely.
if we end up allowing it, I
Yeah.
would also put, in my opinion, some parameters that it's not just because you're selling hot dogs in the parking lot.
Well,
Now
yeah,
you need to put a
they'd be
flag
beholden
out there.
if it's a.
Commercial?
If it's a commercial entity, right, and they want to do commercial speech on the flag or wind device, whatever it is, right, they'd be beholden to the temporary commercial
Right,
freestanding
Right.
regulations.
right.
in
And like,
the-
you
in the
know,
draft.
on the same topic, I mean, if, whether we go that far or we don't go that far, another option is, you know, when new businesses are opening, right? I mean, we don't allow them to put those things up there, but I think a temporary X amount of days before they open, after they open, grand opening, you know.
Yeah, that gets to
That's
the
the event, the timeline. Right,
Yeah.
I want to pursue that. I think we should pursue that when new businesses are opening. Publix opened on Main Street. Did anybody know what they had in their, on Main Street?
Big old inflatable.
They had not only inflatable, which is not allowed, massive inflatable, by the way. They also had a sign, a flag, a wind thingy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and nobody's gonna go over there and tell them to deflate that whenever they're new.
We
to our-
did.
Did you? Yeah. Did you really? Yeah. Okay.
You're in the city.
Somebody complained?
Welcome to this.
Wow, okay.
That's
Dang,
why
that's
it
how we
disappeared
welcome
so
them to our neighborhood? That's hilarious. Sad, I don't know. But hey, well, thank you for doing that, because that's the code, right? But that's the same, I wish we wouldn't have, right? You know, I wish we would change it so they could have done that for 2 weeks or whatever. That's what I would like to figure out how to make it happen and all the
Okay.
legal jargon.
Just out of curiosity, have we made any changes in the status of windsocks or feathers or those other wind-blown things that are
So-
prohibited in the
so-
present ordinance?
No, wind devices are still prohibited.
Okay,
Wind socks are different because that's a navigational aid
is.
required by FAA or
various,
whoever, yeah.
various groups.
Yeah.
Any other things before we move forward?
One
Yeah,
last thing.
so on the flags would be considered a temporary commercial use, right?
Yes.
And
Well, it depends on the speech, right? If it's a commercial business advertising their business, then yes, it would be a commercial,
Okay.
temporary commercial
So
sign.
now I get a permanent sign, right? Fixed, blade, planted in the ground, no higher than 8 feet. And I get a temporary, and the limits on the number of temporaries I get would be,
Whatever is the maximum square footage in the chart, that's per temporary commercial speech.
okay? So, and would that be one down on the harbor and one down on 98? Or would that just be one for the parcel?
So there's regulations in the charts that say waterfront signage in these zoning districts, and I think it's specific to the South Harbor mixed use. It does have regulations in there for that.
I can't see that. That's, See,
or it's a footnote, or it's a footnote somewhere.
It is, it's in the South
I got
Harbor
the
mixed
temporary
use, but I was going to suggest that it might be included in Bay Estates and along Joe's Bayou as well, instead of just the South Harbor, because that is waterfront that people are,
Are we talking commercial speech here or non-commercial?
I would say commercial, because some of them are advertising their business
That takes place in Bay Estates?
off of Bay Estates. They put it on the dock.
So they're operating a business from their dock that's attached to Bay Estates?
Yep.
That's not allowed.
I know, but that doesn't
so-
mean anything.
So
That
if
doesn't
we,
mean anything.
but if we allow that,
No, I'm
right,
not saying
then-
allow it. I'm saying I think it needs to be included as
but
prohibited.
included as prohibited, okay. I
Those
missed that
words,
part.
Those words, Bay Estates and Joe's
Well, it
Bayou.
says it,
It just says South Harbor mixed use
well,
here.
Bay Estates is a.
because that's, again, going back to that comment that I made about Lewis, you write your regulations for what you want. Because we have what's called a permissive code. If it's in there, you can do it. If it's not, you can't.
Okay.
That's how that code works.
Okay,
So if it's not in there, then you can't do it.
okay.
Okay, Bay Estates is residential, right?
Correct.
Well,
Okay.
yeah.
So a temporary commercial sign in a residential district, total square foot, 12
12 square feet. Yeah.
Right.
And that's intended for real estate. But if the
say real
business,
estate.
but if they were operating a business from their home, right, that would be a home occupation, and therefore they can't advertise their business because that's an external indication of a business operating there. If they're advertising a commercial operation that's not on that property, that's off premise and therefore prohibited.
Okay.
Okay, I'll have to read again where we differentiate between a real estate for sale sign.
We don't. The Supreme Court has stated that real estate signage is commercial, okay? And so we cannot say that you can't advertise your home for sale. So we have to make some provision for that.
Is there anything in there that says the condition of the flag? It can't be frayed, faded, wind beat, anything like that?
I think that would get into the dilapidated signs, dilapidated or abandoned signs.
Well, that's
But we
sign or
could add
flag?
something specific, if that's what you're trying to get at.
Yeah, because if we're separating signs and flags. I wanna
No,
know-
we're not separating signs and flags.
Okay.
A flag, if it has a message on it, is a sign. What we're separating is saying the American flag, right, is exempt. What we're saying is that standards or ensigns or colors of political, jurisdictional, all that sort of stuff, they're exempt, okay? But if you have a flag, a sign, a commercial speech or non-commercial speech flag, it's still going to be beholden to the regulations based on what the speech is.
So dilapidated, frayed falls under the category for frayed or faded?
We can make it more clear.
All right.
All right.
Answer your question earlier, Tori, I pulled up the Bud Puckers. So once the annexation agreement expires, then they have to come into compliance with whatever code is current at the time. So whatever's in effect, they'll have to take down the sign if we prohibit them.
Sandy?
In my neighborhood, there's a lot of people that have planted shrubbery around street signs, stop signs, dead-end signs, and it's not been removed. So I think we need to have something in there that says, you know, you can't put shrubbery out on the right-of-way around a sign. That's
Okay.
just know that.
We do have some regulations in the right-of-way protection about that.
Okay.
So,
Because I can point to two right now that you can go take care of.
Sure.
Okay, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but did we get in this conversation like 10 years ago on Scenic 98, that we encouraged people in neighborhoods to put
To pleasantry,
vegetation,
signs,
to
yes.
put beautification
Beautification of the
of the right-of-way? and now we're gonna,
No, 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 I'm talking about at the base of a stop sign.
okay.
We got a sago palm that's covering a dead end sign,
Oh,
in front of a dead end sign. So it's like,
So there's regulations, you can't cover signs that are regulated by the municipal or the manual uniform traffic, the MUCTUD is what it's called.
yeah, okay.
Thank
No,
you,
that's-
control
That's what I'm
devices.
talking about. I'm not talking about shrubbery in front of
There it is,
resident,
that,
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about street signs.
Yeah, but those are regulated by the MUTCD, and you can't cover those. So if there's something that's overgrown it, then it needs to be maintained, and the adjacent property owner is responsible for the maintenance of landscaping that's directly adjacent to their right-of-way, to their property.
Okay.
All right, next slide.
just one quick question. So if I have a
I
flag,
tried.
I know, I have a flag, that's my temporary sign, right? So I can't have a little, stick in the ground, I can't have 3 or 4 other signs.
You can't exceed with the allowances that are in the whatever is adopted, right? So all those numbers in there are they either exist now or they're examples, right? And they can change, right? I think the maximums, for a residential district, the maximum square footage allowed is like 12 square or 75 square feet for temporary non-commercial, with a maximum sign size, singular size at 15 square feet.
Right.
So.
Okay.
So that's what you would be beholden to. You can have up to 75 square feet, but no single sign can be larger than 15 square feet.
Where I'm going is, are we going to drive down 98 and see 15 5-square-foot signs, flags, whatever, on this one piece of property? Would that be, as long as it doesn't exceed 75
Yeah.
square feet total?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not up for that, I'm sorry.
Well, and some of these are
You're not a fan of what specifically?
Boom, 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 which is why I don't like signs at all, but to clutter up the right-of-way like that with 15.
Oh, it wouldn't be allowed, it'd be on their private property.
Okay.
It wouldn't-
still-
they're-
Okay,
yeah.
so it's 2 feet off the
Yeah,
sidewalk. or
okay.
5 feet off the
Yeah.
sidewalk. It's still 15 signs.
Yeah,
It's clutter.
yes,
It's,
yeah. So if you want to put a maximum amount of signs, we can do that as well. So at that point, you'd have 5 or 15 signs at 5 square feet each, right? Not to exceed, that equals 75, right?
Right.
They're not exceeding 15 square feet. But if you wanted to say, well, you also can't have more than 3 signs, 4 signs, right?
Okay.
But what we also have to be cognizant of is what Kim was getting at with the event stuff, right around elections. Are you really gonna limit the amount of signage that somebody wants to put in their property to support their political candidate, the amendments that they want to say yes or no on? Like, are you going to do that?
So if we say 3
So-
signs and they're supporting 5 candidates, then we've limited them to 3
Yeah,
signs.
but if we say, during an event, 30 days, 90 days prior, 10 days after, right, then you're allowed X amount of signage, right? But again,
well,
it's not,
that's
it's not,
political speech. I'm not talking about.
but
regulating
we can't say just political speech. We have to say non-commercial speech.
Trying to get where it's flat across the board, and you have to be like, okay, you can have 3 signs, period. Whether it's a political event or it's your
Yeah.
signs for your business, you get 3 signs. So then we limit or shackle ourselves to, we can't increase that at any time of an event where they'd want additional signs.
Well, we can increase it for an event, and we can say, yeah, like, for example, an election, but we can't say during elections, because that's saying what kind of signage we're specifically targeting, right? Unless we just say events, right? You're having an event. But what I need to hammer home, though, is that we can't say that, okay, during an event, you're allowed specifically unlimited political speech. Political speech falls under non-commercial speech. Therefore, whatever the event is, it doesn't matter. You can have, if you're going to say you can have unlimited non-commercial speech during an event. That's going to apply to all non-commercial speech, all of it. So we're talking, I use this example because it is a real world example that I dealt with in another municipality, okay? Churches would put their signs out supporting X, Y, and Z, right? For the most part, the community was in favor or had no problem with the church and what the church was saying. However, the community as a whole was not Church of Satan, right? But the Church of Satan literally started putting signs in the same manner as all the other churches were. That's when people started noticing. It's like, well, we don't want that. It's like, sorry, we can't just go out there and pull those signs. We have to pull all of them, or we have to allow all of them. Make sense? That's what Reed v. Gilbert has done to us. So,
Or done for us.
or done for us, yeah.
And we can't anticipate every contingency.
Correct.
And so,
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I've noticed in several campaigns, it's always gotten my goat, is you have the street signs, the little 18 by 24 signs for anything, realtor, political, whatever that is. And then you have the 4 by 6 foot sign that somebody comes in our little town. Does anybody need a 4 by 6 foot sign? I mean, I don't know where you can go that you can't, that's bigger than my car. When you think about it, I think the size needs to be smaller, even for the temporary ones or
Well, that's
for
what
the permanent
it's
ones.
getting at. Is the maximum size is 15 square feet, whatever that is. Is it?
That's
is
a
it
3 by 5.
Yeah, 3 by 5. Is it 1 by 15?
That's pretty big.
Yeah, 2 by 7.5, right?
That's
So,
pretty big.
Yeah, so that's, and the maximum right now per the draft is 75 square feet in total. But getting to the cluttered nature, we can limit the number of signage, in a non-event period. If you want to allow more signage during an event, we can say up to 10, up to 12, unlimited, whatever it is, so. But it's going, like I said, it's going to apply to all of that speech, not just a certain type of speech.
I just don't think any event needs a 4 by 6 foot sign.
Okay. All right, next slide. I think, so we're gonna get into public comments here. So we did pass the sign code off to sign companies, because they're always a really good resource to understand how this is going to impact the sign world. So we did receive some comments back. The LPA addressed each one of them. The first one is the freestanding column allows for 150 square feet, but only a maximum of height. So they're talking about the mixed-use districts. So a height of 8, which means that it's going to be an 8-foot tall. If they maximize 150 square feet, it's going to be 8 feet tall by 18.5 feet wide, right? The LPA maintained the recommendation that you see, 8 feet in the mixed-use district. My kind of retort to that question, I'm not disagreeing with it at all or in any manner, but what I'm saying is when you're driving down a road, your perception of the size of signage is much different than when you're standing next to it. And so an 18.5 foot wide sign by 8 foot tall sign doesn't seem as big when you're driving. And that's really what the signs are meant for. They're really for the vehicular drivers. So unless you're standing next to it, it's not going to seem very big.
If we want the corridor clear, the closer you get, the bigger it gets.
Yeah.
That's like having a billboard.
Yeah. So the only
8 feet high.
the only way to declutter, right? The only way to limit that, to increase the view corridor, shrink the height, shrink the maximum size, get rid of signage, right? You have to start chipping away at what your allowances are. So that's going to be a call for you all, because staff put in what it currently allowed. We provided some examples, right? But it's going to be you all at the end of the day making that decision as to what are you all comfortable chipping away at. So, the next one, I don't see allowances for harbor district signs to be less than 10 foot setback. So that had to be removed due to Reed v. Gilbert because we can no longer say this corridor allows, because right now, from edge of Marlar Bridge to Gulf Shore Drive, the signs that front 98 can go 4 feet into the 10-foot setback, okay? We can no longer regulate by corridor. We have to regulate by zoning district, okay? So we would have to identify the zoning districts along that corridor in which we want to allow that setback. So if we want to maintain that, then we'll have to identify the zoning districts. Otherwise, it's got to be removed because we can't just say from here to here. We have to regulate it by zoning district. So, thoughts on that?
That is the harbor district, right, basically?
It's the harbor planning area or the harbor CRA, but those are not zoning districts.
Okay,
So
so
we
we
have-
don't
we
have
have
a
to
South Harbor zoning district. It's just-
South Harbor mixed use is a zoning district, so we could make that allowance for South Harbor mixed use. Absolutely, yes, we can, or even North Harbor mixed use. But we can't say in the harbor district or the harbor CRA, this allowance is allowed,
That
right?
would seem to be the simple way to do it.
Okay.
Anybody?
No, I agree with that. Put it in both of them.
Okay, sounds good. Okay. Non-commercial allowances seem generous, 3 foot by 10 foot sign in a residential yard. So again, non-commercial, some of that has changed since going through the LPA. Currently though, the real estate signage allowed in residential districts is a 32 square foot sign in square footage, up to 8 feet high. So, I mean, it's a rather large sign that can, yeah. But that's allowed for real estate signage in current residential districts. So, but that's really no longer applicable since it's gone through the LPA. It is what it is now. It's a 75 maximum total, but a singular sign can be no more than 15 square feet for non-resident or for non-commercial signage. Okay.
Back to the previous one, I just want to ask Jim, why did the LPA reject the allowance of 4 foot into the setback?
No, it was discussed at multiple meetings.
The note says, the LPA considered this, which is the allowance of going 4 feet into the setback, and recommended to remove the allowance. They also discussed doing a similar amortization of the existing signs, allowing them to remain for a determined amount of time, and then requiring them to come into compliance with the existing regulations. Then you asked, how many
maybe-
signs would be affected by this, and the staff is doing the research to find out. However, based on existing conditions of the Harbor Boulevard corridor, this would likely affect a vast majority of the signs.
I can't remember if that was the one that Jim was at or was not at.
Okay.
Yeah. 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 Staff brought up the removal of it because we can't regulate it by the corridor. We did mention that you can regulate it by zoning district, just like we have separated North Harbor and South Harbor out in the charts. But that's what the recommendation was. So. All right, next. So this is about how we measure signage. There's 1,000 ways to measure a sign, okay? The way that we do it, especially when it comes to odd shapes, and I think it shows an example in the draft. And Daniel, if you could pull that up, how we measure. We create essentially a rectangle at the extreme edges of the sign, and then we measure that rectangle as the square footage, okay? Because it's really difficult to say, measure the square footage at the boundaries of the drawing of, say, the Chick-fil-A sign, right? If they just took this Chick-fil-A brand, and we just measured all the little red chicken, right? Rather than just creating a rectangle around it at the extreme edges of it, right? So what that comment is saying is that doing it that way takes away from square footage allowances. I don't necessarily disagree with it, but this is the way we currently do it. This is the simplest way to do it, and it is the easiest way to enforce it. Okay. I think the next one's the last comment from the public. Oh, yeah, this one has to do with full motion video. Then since the LPA recommended to get rid of digital signage altogether, they didn't even really consider it. And it seems, based on the conversation, that full motion video is just off the board, period. So I don't even think it worth discussing. So that's signage right there. Any questions, qualms, issues, major red flags?
I just had a question. It was a recommendation to go to the 15-second interval between whatever advertising. How does the rest of the council feel about that? Right now, it's set for 10 seconds.
10 seconds is a longer interval than most signs practiced throughout the state and the county and everywhere.
What is the amount?
It's 10 seconds currently. Yeah.
No, I mean ours is, but what is the state's?
For the state.
Oh, yeah, it's 6 per the state, but the state is a blanket. And really, when you look at, like I can't remember the name of the sign, the National Sign Association, their recommendation is based on the speed of the corridor, the distance away from the travel lanes, and then the message being put on. So there's so many different factors to put in there that if we start doing that, that's gonna triple any permit that comes in for digital signage. It's gonna triple the amount of time that it takes staff to review them. So keeping it at 10 seconds is almost double the state requirement. It's long enough for somebody to be able to drive by at 35 miles an hour and read what it says without getting too distracted. So.
Okay, so I don't see a consensus. That's what I'm giving you direction. Don't change it.
Yeah.
See, I mentioned it and there was no other discussion, so you had no idea whether to change it or not. That's why I was giving you the information.
No one made a recommendation to change it, so we weren't gonna change it.
No, and I'd be good with 6 seconds. I mean, for, like, I think it was Sunday, we went, I think Dewey had like 4 fresh catches of the day, but only 3 would fit on the sign at one time. And it's like, what was swordfish was the 4th one. And it was like, okay, like, damn, I got to stop here on 98. So
You couldn't call him? Couldn't call him? All right. That was the last, I believe, for signage. Do we want to continue? Do we want to take a break? Do we want to?
I'd ask the back row. We can either stay here for longer or we can come back.
I need to go get a drink because if you heard my voice, I almost broke there for a second. All right, big one. There's really not a whole lot to discuss on this one. Let me switch this slide real quick. Thanks, Jesse. I'm gonna walk you through kind of how to read it. Just keep flipping through. Next, yep, right here. So the very first example up there is a proposed modified definition. So it's a definition that exists, it's a term that exists currently, but we're modifying the definition. And you can tell that because the term itself is not underlined, or what is being modified in the term does have an underline right there. So abutting property is the current term, but we're putting that adjacent, abutting / adjacent property, right? And then the modification is what's underlined underneath it, okay? And in this particular case, the entire definition, we're saying we would like to change the definition in that. The existing definition is just below it, and that's italicized. So whenever you see that combination, you know the existing definition is the italicized version that is below it, and anything underlined is what is being modified. Make sense? Yeah, it's changed, yeah. Proposed to change. Nope, stay on that slide. The next one, so the third one down, everything is underlined, so that's a brand new term. Doesn't exist in the current glossary, so, but we need to identify it. We need to define it. The fourth one down is an unmodified definition. We're not proposing to make any sorts of changes to that. And then any definition that is completely struck through is we're proposing to remove it, okay? So as you go through the definitions, the glossary, refer back to that. I think that's on the very first page of the draft, or the second page of the draft, so you can always refer back to it. That section will go away once we adopt it, but that's just to kind of help people understand what the different icons and different formats mean. Any questions to that?
Questions, anybody?
Okay, next slide. So now we're just going to get into a few definitions, I think 3 or 4. Beach being one of them that's been brought before you all. A few minor modifications to it, to the current existing definition that the LPA recommended, and that is the addition of the Gulf of Mexico instead of just the Gulf, and then the addition of East Pass as being included in the beaches, because it wasn't, although some of us would consider it beach, it's not included in the beach because it says the Gulf. So is the pass the Gulf? Is it the bay? What is it if it's not either? So it's just recommended to include the East Pass as in the definition of beach. So, but it is a bit of a convoluted definition. And depending on how you want to interpret it, it could be open to interpretation. So staff, we're not biologists, we're not, geographers or geologists or anything like that. So, at the end of the day, anyone could point to a beach and say, yes, that's a beach, but how do you define it? So that's kind of the crux of the issue. Do we really want to try and come up with a simpler term of definition, or do we just leave it as is and leave it open to somewhat of an interpretation when and if we need to get some sort of interpretation from legal based on an event?
The only thing is it's defined this way in Florida statutes, so now I'm thinking the better way to do it is just address the issues instead of changing the definition, which the definition is the same in Florida statutes as our code for beach.
No, you said address the issues.
Oh, well, depending on what the issue is. If we're talking about fires on the beach, let's just talk about where we want or don't want fires. Whatever the issue is, I think maybe just put it in regulations instead of, we were going to try to address it by amending the definition, but I don't think state law will be consistent.
And we also asked the LPA to do a little bit of homework when we presented this. We asked them to take this definition and go to an aerial imagery of wherever they want to, of what they deem the beach, and try to delineate the beach by drawing it based on this definition. And Jim, you wanna? Not with a 10-foot pole?
So it did not work there? No?
Yeah, so, it's difficult, to say the least, so, I would just go with what Kim just said, address it as needed.
Yeah, I'm good with that, or from the mean low water to the CCCL where one exists, because it doesn't exist throughout the state. But either definition is good to me,
Okay.
because CCCL is where you're going to actually have.
Yeah, and I know I mentioned that, I said that once, I think, or you and I discussed that, once, and it turns out that, the CCCL is not as landward as I originally thought in some locations,
Correct.
so.
In some places.
Yeah, so this, yeah. Mhm. Yeah, yep, so the CCL, no, the CCL, the coastal construction control line is regulated by the state, so the state sets it. It might be, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head if it's actually defined, if it would be, it'd be in the Cs, and it would just be as dictated by the state, so.
Yeah, but I think it might behoove us to take the state's definition and put it in here.
You're going to have to press the button because you're not being heard.
I said it would behoove us to take the state's definition and put it
Okay.
in here.
All right,
We have it in the glossary.
It's in the glossary already? Okay.
okay, there we go.
Now, that is the state definition?
For beach.
Yeah.
Plus, but we added beach as used in this coastal management element requirement is limited to Gulf of Mexico, East Pass, and Estuarine.
Okay, estuarine shorelines, that's the bios?
The bay and the bayous, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
All right, next slide. All right, charter fishing. It's modified. We just say seafarer carrying vessel, and then we just took charter for hire and added that into the fare carrying vessel. And that was a recommendation of the LPA, which was recommended by Captain Jarvis.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and, while we're on this one, are we going to define livery vessel because it's not in there? I just thought I'd ask that question.
It's in the Code of Ordinances, not the LDC, that's why.
Yeah.
So we are going to define livery vessel and it is defined.
Not because
the
it's in the Code of
LDC.
Ordinances.
This is the LDC glossary. It's in the Code of Ordinances.
Yeah.
Why-
But we're defining every other type of vessel,
So-
so my question.
So livery vessel.
Why are we defining these and not defining that one, which is where 90% of our issues have been? And I understand it's land development code, but
Yeah.
still, we feel the
So-
need to.
Livery falls under what land use, Daniel?
I believe it's rentals. Let me-
And I'm pretty sure we define, so the land use for livery falls under a different classification, not called out as livery, and we define that land use in the LDC. So that's how we,
What land use is charter fishing boats?
fair carrying vessel. We don't have a land use of charter fishing boat. We have a land use of fair carrying vessel.
Yeah, so I'm,
Yeah, what is
you don't see the discrepancy here? Because what's the land use for fair carrying vessels? You're telling me we don't have livery vessels here because
Of the
we
land.
don't have, the land use associated with it is rentals or whatever? Okay. What's the land use for fair carrying vessels?
Fair carrying vessel is the land use, that's what it's listed as in the land use table. Is fair carrying vessel.
You understand
But to
my,
your point, I mean, so we don't use the term livery vessel in the LDC the way we do in the code. So I think the reason is we did the Code of Ordinance provisions on livery vessels in 2017. They didn't exist before that. So when we put them in the code, it never was addressed in the LDC. But we could
Yeah,
just
we
change the
absolutely-
use table and start calling livery vessels livery vessels.
Yeah, we absolutely
And then
can.
add the definition. Of course, we're going to need to work out that definition. It's supposed to come to council again soon anyway. So we'll do that. Okay. Can we do that, Steve?
Yeah.
Change the table?
Yeah, we can have
Make that a
livery as a
recommendation.
land use
Well, it
to
will be
address
livery
parking.
vessel operation as the land use,
Yeah.
right? Operator.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's mainly for parking purposes. So, yeah. So, anything else on this one?
And they need parking.
Okay.
A question about fair carrying vessels. Where it says charter for hire and it gives all the examples. And then it says not to include pontoons, runabouts, personal watercraft. I mean, should there be a term in there that says anything requiring a licensed captain? So that you can eliminate, because you're eliminating that, but you don't really distinguish why, right? All the other vessels have a licensed captain, right, for a charter or fair carrying vessel?
Yes.
But it doesn't really state that that's what the difference is, but now you've excluded pontoons, so what happens when you get the,
Because now what we're doing there is we're doing regulation by definition by requiring that they be mandated
Okay.
when that's a Coast Guard regulation.
okay, so where did those little tiki hut things fall into this?
The tiki huts that are manned by a captain would be a
Sightseeing.
sightseeing. Thank
And
you,
it wouldn't be
Daniel.
a fair carrying?
It's a sightseeing vessel is a fair carrying
Okay, I
vessel.
see what you're saying, it's under the definition, I see that now.
Yep.
All right.
Okay, next. I think open space is next. Yep. All right, so that definition that you see, that blob of italicized language there is the current definition of open space. It's very broad, very open to interpretation. Essentially what it means, what it boils down to is if wherever there is not a building and wherever there is not a vehicular use area, it is open space. So the patio around a pool and the pool itself is open space, right? This is the only place I've ever worked or seen that has that broad of a definition for open space. Generally, open space is limited to landscaped areas. So we, staff, are proposing, the LPA recommended to change the definition to a portion of a site that is not occupied by any building coverage, vehicular use area, or impervious surfaces. For the purpose of this definition, paver systems or similar development is not considered open space, just to make that clarity.
I just had a question. Do we have any idea how much of our open space is now covered by impervious?
The good news is that most developers generally already calculate open space to the way that we are wanting to define it. For the most part. There are the ones that have been around for a while and know how we do it, but the ones that, are doing a vast majority of the work around here, leave it to how we want to have it. So I can't give you a solid number, but it's probably not as bad as I might make it seem by saying that our current definition is very broad.
Yeah, I would agree and say it's not much at all. That's
So
not a very,
basically, our developers that have come in and developed based on what's
Everybody
been
else's definition.
properly done throughout other cities, states, and counties
Yeah.
Yeah.
versus our
Yeah.
very
yeah,
broad
and this isn't
use.
something that we
And-
like to just give up, this
Yeah.
information. Yeah.
In-
Right.
And we do have currently open space reduction, right? For those that are super constrained, especially down on the harbor, South Harbor mixed use area, North Harbor mixed use, very constrained sites. And we did maintain those open space reduction policies, so.
So at the moment, impervious open space could not be counted for landscape.
No, currently, if you're not going to drive or park a car on it and there is no building, it's considered open space.
Okay, but it's not a landscape. It doesn't meet the landscape
No,
requirement.
no. And the landscape requirement really is just trees and shrubs.
Okay.
It's not, there is grass coverage where there is open like non-hardscaped area, there is ground coverage requirement. But no, the hardscaping does not count towards the landscaping
Okay,
requirement.
thanks.
Yep.
Anybody else?
Okay, I think that was the last one. Yeah.
Paver systems or similar development is not considered open space. So if I put pavers around my pool's impervious, so it's not open space.
Correct.
But I put pavers around my pool, that's now not considered open
Correct.
space. So what we're going to do is we're going to encourage people to go the cheaper route and just put concrete deck all around
No,
their pool.
it says, that is the portion of a site that is not occupied by any building coverage, vehicular use area, or impervious surfaces.
Right?
Okay? So if it's occupied by an impervious surface, then it's not open space.
Right. And for
So
the
concrete.
purposes of this definition, paver systems, which generally are pervious, not as pervious.
No, they're
obviously.
considered impervious.
Okay.
Paver systems are considered impervious. We can add concrete to that.
No, I got the concrete's impervious. That's not where I'm going. The perk rate on a paver system is much lower than ground, the ground that it sits on top of. But it is better than concrete.
When first developed. After
Yes.
over years, if you don't maintain it, you don't clean it, it becomes just as impervious as concrete.
Depends on the definition, and I know that part of the code, depending on how your pavers are, if they are holes that have gravel in them, they are considered somewhat pervious.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so it depends on the type of paver.
paver.
I would like,
How detailed do you want us to go?
I'd like to see pervious concrete added to it as well.
In our code,
What's that?
Pervious concrete added to it,
Pervious,
because people are gonna claim pervious concrete, and if they don't maintain it, it no longer has a percolation rate, right?
Okay.
Right.
So that shouldn't be considered open space either.
Okay.
I just don't want somebody coming in here with a green act.
What we can say is we can get rid of that and just say hardscape systems or hardscaped elements are not considered open space.
The definition of hardscape is,
I think we have it in there. If not, we will develop one.
be interested in seeing what it is.
See, go down to H.
All right, any other?
Yeah, I got one about a butt minute adjacent. I'm sorry, I got one about a butt minute adjacent. And what I want to make sure of is, to me, those should be two different definitions. Because adjacent versus abutment, how you have this separated, when we go back to Country Club Drive East, that gentleman that was in here complaining about the water runoff, there's a house across the street at a higher elevation. That runoff, he can't maintain that water on his property, and it goes down to the easement, over the road, over the other easement that we're responsible for, and into his yard. So as a property owner, I'm responsible for keeping runoff from abutting properties, but not adjacent properties, right?
No, yeah, it'd be both. You're responsible to keep your stormwater on your property, whether adjacent or abutting.
But it's allowed to hit an
they're
easement.
essentially the same thing.
It's allowed to hit an easement, right?
If the easement is for that, yes.
Okay, well, isn't that exactly what that easement's designed for? Because there's a swell.
Yeah, but that's what the system was designed for. It was designed to take that stormwater system. So
But-
if you're allowed to put your stormwater into that system, then it's allowed.
Okay.
Otherwise,
So when the
if you
water
don't have
overflows
access
So
to
when
it.
that easement fills up, right,
Mhm.
because right now that's level. This house is on an elevated, is at a higher elevation.
Mm-hmm.
It's running over the easement, over the road, over the next easement, into that guy's house.
Then
So how do
it's
you do-
probably
how do
a
you
storm
separate
that exceeds the requirement of retention. If the retention system is overflowing,
It's not overflowing, it's been filled in over time.
Well, that's different.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So then the responsibility of maintaining the stormwater system is really the issue.
It's the issue of the cities, but that's what I'm saying
Yeah.
also is, if I'm that homeowner, it's my responsibility to keep it going from an abutting property. It's not my responsibility from maintaining that easement, that's the city's responsibility, right?
Yeah, but it's abutting and adjacents it's the same thing.
Well, you've
It's-
separated adjacent here by saying that including easements, roadways, where that wasn't part of abutting, correct? In the previous definition. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but because what we're saying is that anything that is adjacent to your property or anything here's your property line, this is your property, this is somebody else's property, whether city or private, right? That's all it is. We're just defining what abutting and adjacent means. Because we use the term abutting and adjacent throughout the code interchangeably.
Okay, so you're using that interchangeably?
Yes.
Regardless. But can you at least see the problem that I can possibly see happening here?
I
Because
see
it
the
could-
problem somebody filled in the system, or the system
the
filled in
system
itself,
filled in
and it
itself
just needs to
due
be
elevating the property,
maintained.
right, and it's running over.
I'm sorry, those houses were built before we were a city, and there was no requirement for that, because I lived on that street then.
Yeah.
So that is the issue.
Yeah.
No, I got it. And it used to be a swampland. Somebody filled it in, put homes. I deal with that. When I put my pool in, I dug down 2 feet and I was underwater. So I understand. I live in that neighborhood, but
Yeah.
I'm just trying to make sure.
All we're defining is what abutting and adjacent
All right.
is.
Just want to make sure that
And so-
homeowner on the elevated property is not responsible for that runoff that's going into that easement. Why would he be responsible for the water that's going, that the easement's not containing? He's on an elevation. How is he supposed to maintain that?
I'm gonna let you take this one, Joe.
Well, that's what your swales and your subsurface drainage facilities will do, is to capture that runoff, allow it to perk into the soil before it runs off onto the adjacent properties.
Okay, so when it did not, because that filled in, whose responsibility was that to remove or clear that swell? Do we have a program in place? Because the city is responsible for the right-of-way, correct?
That's correct.
So do we have a program in place where we go around?
Let me
and check-
clarify that comment real quick. There are certain elements that the city is responsible for maintenance in the right of way. There are other elements that the adjacent and abutting property owner is responsible for.
And
Specifically
that's
landscaping.
actually true. As far as the drainage is concerned, that would be the city's, and that's actually addressed in the citywide stormwater master plan update with the roadside swale initiative that was approved by city council some time ago.
All right, so it's something that we realize was a failure from the city's perspective, but it's something we're working to rectify.
That's correct.
All right,
But now, as Steve was saying, there is an element of maintenance, mowing the grass, keeping it edged, keeping the sidewalk clear from vegetation. That is the adjacent or abutting homeowner's responsibility. But as far as the stormwater is concerned, that would be our responsibility as the city.
all right, so adjacent, let me think about that. Let me think about that for 1 second then, because what you're saying is also from the public right of way. So technically, by the way that, you just stated that, if my sidewalk's on this side of my property, I have an easement, a roadway, an easement, another sidewalk, that sidewalk's still abutting or adjacent to my property. Am I responsible for clearing that?
You're responsible for
vegetation?
clearing your vegetation, your grass, because you're going to keep your curb appeal to your home, to your business, to a much higher standard than the city will ever be able to do
No, and I
that.
got that for the one in front of directly in front of my residence, but based on this definition for adjacent, the other residence across the street is also adjacent to my property that I'm
No,
still
they're
responsible
not.
for?
They're actually on the other side of the right-of-way, so they're actually adjacent to the same bit of right-of-way that you are, as being across the street, except that you only do your side of the road, they will do their side of the road.
Okay, but that's not
I
what this
see
says.
your confusion.
This
We
says
can-
immediately cross any
Yeah,
road or
the
public right.
immediately across, I just noticed that. That we can fix that.
All right.
Very good.
Uh-oh, we got a problem. Hold on.
We don't have to spend hours on it here. We'll talk about it, but there's case law on the definition of adjacent that makes it go across the right-of-way, so we'll talk about it.
All right.
We'll fix it.
All right.
This is besides Article 4, I think this is the longest article, 70-something, 80-something pages. A lot of definitions in there. It's hard to go through term by term. These were the big ticket ones that staff needed a little bit of direction on or a little bit of guidance on. If you go through it, you got any questions, recommendations, or just general comments, shoot them our way. So that's all we
But
got
in the
for.
meantime, you got a very good guidance from LPA on this as being very close to what is a done product, correct?
Yes, we have. Yeah, this was the last article to need to go through LPA recommendation. We got that, which is why we're at workshop right now. So as far as the initial final draft review, that's complete. Now it's going back through all of these workshops, looking at a little bit of guidance, a little bit of direction here and there, change of this, change of that, making those changes, and then reconfirming that with LPA and in ordinance form, and then bringing that ordinance for 2 readings to you all. However, there are a few other steps that need to happen. We have discussed before, they're based on some policy changes. There may be some edits to the comprehensive plan that need to be made. That list is generated. Those amendments and changes will be brought forth for that guidance. And if it's not approved, then we'll have to go back through and make some changes to the draft LDC. But most of the stuff was already addressed in the audit that 3TP provided you all, I think 4 years ago before I got here. And so the direction was already in staff's hand to go forth with some of these, so.
Thank you.
Yep, so that's a step that needs to take place before ordinance is brought forth to you all. And then movement of several sections in the current LDC to the Code of Ordinances. So that's going to be another step that happens before the ordinance for the LDC comes to you all. So we're close, we're not there, we're close, so.
And then, of course, when it comes back in ordinance form, it's subject to change again.
Yes, always, so.
Yep.
So yeah, that was the last big article. We do still have, it's 8 o'clock. We do have 3, 5, 9, and 10 to discuss. For me, I don't think it's a whole lot of discussion to go on. But I'll leave it up to you all if you want to continue.
Council, what are you feeling?
Let's stay and finish.
Let's go.
Stay and finish, or
Let's
just
stick
bring
with
it
it
to
for a while.
ordinance form as proposed, and we'll tear it up then.
Okay, so
Either way.
I don't have a presentation for you for these last 4 articles. I don't know where it went. Been making a lot of presentations
Just give them a
lately.
quick
so-
summary of what
Yeah,
you changed.
It's super easy. So Article 3 is nonconformities. That exists currently in Section 713 in Article 7 of the current LDC. That has all been removed in this brand-new draft article has been created. The biggest change, the only major substantive change other than language to make it more readily, easily to read, the legalese and all that sort of stuff, is section, there are 2 sections, section 305, which is non-conforming site elements, and then section 307, non-conformities due to public agency action.
And I've read through it, but do you have the ability to give us a cloud level view of the non-conforming site uses? It appears that it's not a whole lot different.
No, so the current LDC addresses it when somebody wants to come through for a change of use. They'll have to update their site to current regulations. They come through for a development order and their site doesn't comply with current standards. They'll have to meet current standards, right? So it is slightly addressed. It's just not its own section, it's not given its proper due. And so this really goes into your access, it goes into your stormwater, it goes into, if those elements are not conforming and you're changing it, these are the things that you need to meet.
I did notice it has provisions for reduction of non-conforming uses.
Mm-hmm.
And so that section is pretty much the same as what was in there
Yes.
before, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anybody else have any observations, questions?
My only question was, for some reason, I thought we had discussed sewer systems.
That's in Article 6
Okay,
and the design manual.
okay, all right.
Yeah.
I'll wait till then. I thought it was going to be.
We've already brought that to you all. We brought we brought that 2 days before Ryan left us because, yeah.
We were bringing it back for non-conforming, but I'll go back and check with it.
Yeah, well, we workshopped it and the changes or whatever will be put into that final ordinance draft and then have that discussion again, if that's what you're referring to. Okay.
All right.
And the public agency action is kind of self-explanatory.
Any further questions?
Okay, Article 5 is subdivisions. There are 4 different locations for subdivision regulations throughout the current LDC. This just consolidates them. It updates a few things as far as requirements for sewer, requirements for stormwater. Rather than doing individual lots, doing stormwater, it's more of a neighborhood stormwater retention system. So that way, the people don't have to take up their entire backyard with those stormwater retention system. The neighborhoods is taking care of it. So those types of things that are issues now are fixed with this subdivision requirement. So that's what this article does. It consolidates all the subdivision and then updates the requirements for stormwater, sewer, utilities, all that sort of stuff. So,
Any questions on the one? All right.
all right. Article 9 is our transportation corridor management. So we took the transportation management plan, the pathways master plan, and the newly adopted mobility plan, and kind of referenced and or brought them together under one umbrella, because right now they either live alone on their own or they live in various locations throughout the LDC, maps and all that sort of stuff. So this just brings it into one article under one umbrella by either reference or they live here. So it's easy to reference. So what else? It also has the right-of-way corridor protection, which exists currently in Article 8. And then specifically addresses amendments and variances to these plans or developments that want that. So,
Questions, anybody?
cool. And Article 10 is pretty self-explanatory. Impact fees. The only change that would come to this one would be is if we adopt the mobility plan, or I'm sorry, the mobility fee, then the transportation impact fee would go away.
Exactly.
So, but otherwise, if you go into the impact fee section, Article 18 or 19 right now, you're going to see redundancy after redundancy after redundancy after redundancy after redundancy after redundancy, if you get my point.
Yeah.
This gets rid of that and really focuses it down. Also, there's provisions for, depending on certain criteria, which aren't even applicable anymore, developers can choose from an old table or a new table. That old table has been removed because it's not applicable anymore, so.
Okay, any
So-
questions on that article?
Sounds like you've done a lot of good work. Thank you so far. Thank you, team. Work
Yeah.
in turn, it's awesome. Thank you.
Amazing part of it is that it's all in his head. Like, he knows
Yeah,
the
when he
whole.
was spewing all those numbers, I was like, okay, where did he
It's
read those
impressive,
from? He
Steve.
doesn't even have a slide up there.
So it happens when you live, eat, and breathe this for 3 years.
You've been doing great, though.
He rewatches the workshops and the council meetings over and over then when it's a lot that he's doing.
So I read to my kids at bed.
Well, it's been a very complicated and drawn-out process.
It has been,
Guys,
and I know at times it's felt very slow moving, but I promise you, there has never been a stoppage in this process. Do I wish it could have gone faster? Absolutely.
I don't know how it could happen.
But yeah, it's a process.
But it's very
and-
tedious. What you've had to do
It
is,
is.
like you said, you've had to read through so many documents and find the repetition that is absolutely ridiculous. And combining that, kudos to you and your team for getting this to this state. So.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Really appreciate
I
it.
think we owe them an after party after this is adopted.
I'll appreciate 2 weeks off.
Well, we'll do the party after the ordinances are adopted.
Yes, yes.
right? Okay, now we're in the public comments, and I don't see any public hardly.
They left.
Ray, do you have one? He left us,
Jim said-
Yeah, Jim's the public.
he is
Jim, do you have
tonight, huh?
anything to say as a public member?
I'll just say something that I said a few on the other end of the dais during the break, just for full disclosure, being, I missed my last LPA meeting. I was out of town, unfortunately. As a member of the American Legion, we have a digital sign, so I'm a little torn on the issue. I know I've got, let's just say I've got 400 members, and they will also be torn, and they'll probably all be here. So get ready. So,
Along with those 56 digital sign owners. So
yep,
hopefully we'll come out with a
Correct mundo.
compromise everybody can live with.
so.
It was 65.
65, whatever it was.
There you go. Yeah, he
I
said
transposed them, huh?
65.
I think he missed a couple. All right, no other comment?